Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff and closest ally, Andriy Yermach, has resigned after anti-corruption agencies searched his apartment. Now, this happened at a key time when peace negotiations are underway. Let's talk about this with Walter Dorn, professor of defense studies at the Royal Military College and Canadian Forces College. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Marilla. Always good to be with you.
It sounds like Yermach hasn't actually been accused of anything. So was it necessary for him to resign?
We don't yet know because we don't know what they found at his house. But at the same time, we know that it looks bad on the president of Ukraine himself because there's so many members of his cabinet seem to be involved. So this might be that Yermach is taking the hit, and hopefully that would just cause some of the critics to be more silent. But at the same time, we don't know whether he was actually involved in corruption or not.
Okay, so he may have fallen on his sword to deal with the situation. Let's get to the peace plan as outlined to date. Many have said it capitulates to Russia, and I'm wondering if you agree about that.
The original Trump 28-point peace plan was very pro-Russian. It seemed to, well, first of all, it was negotiated with Russia first before it was even given to Ukraine. So that was really surprising, given that Ukraine is the ally, is the country that needs the support. It's the victim. And to have negotiated with Russia first and coming to some terms that Russia could agree with really seemed to be out of place. Then when Ukraine got it, they were kind of shocked. They didn't want to say that they rejected it, but they got their European allies to come up with a counter proposal. And that proposal is much more balanced. It uses a lot of the words of the 28-point peace plan of Trump, but it actually makes a lot of the provisions more Ukraine-friendly.
Okay, for example, what about Donbass? What about Crimea? In the newer proposal, do they go back to Ukraine?
So in the new proposal, the European proposal, the territory would not be recognized as Russian, but the fact that Russia occupies that territory would be recognized. So Ukraine would still have sovereignty in a legal sense, but in the practical sense, it would recognize that Russia is there on one side of the line of contact. And it does specify that they could have swaps of territory along the line of contact for who controls the territory. But the important part is that Ukraine's sovereignty is intact.
But that would be for Donbass. I can't see them agreeing to that for Crimea.
No, Russia would like to see that the territory is annexed and also is recognized as part of Russia. But Ukraine would never agree to that. And so that's going to be a major sticking point as negotiations go forward. However, the fact that this agreement might say de facto, that's the original word used in the U.S. Proposal, the de facto Russian presence in Crimea could be recognized because we know that's the reality. At the same time, you wouldn't want to give up territory. You wouldn't want to say we're giving it to Russia.
What about Ukraine's desire to join NATO, which was one of the triggers of the conflict early on? How does this get considered in a peace plan?
Right. Originally, the original Trump proposal was that Ukraine would not join NATO. And NATO has already said that Ukraine will join NATO. The current proposal says that NATO won't station any forces under its control permanently on Ukrainian territory. But that does allow that there might be some NATO member states who place forces on a temporary basis, put some bases to help guarantee the peace agreement. And then the NATO could accept Ukraine into the future, but that's not specified. And of course, any NATO membership is subject to veto by any of the members of NATO itself. So that might be a long time.
Okay, so do you see this revised version offered by Europe being accepted by Vladimir Putin?
No, but it's a good step forward. And the kind of negotiations are going to, I think, take months because you need to be able to refine the wording. You need to be able to find compromises. But the whole negotiating process is a good start to finding a solution to this war. Because before it would just look like it was going to grind on and consume ever more number of lives. Now at least we have the beginning of a peace process.
So if I'm reading this right, this is not going to be resolved by end of year.
I don't see this being resolved this year. I think they'll go back and forth. Ideally, there would be a ceasefire first, but the 28-point peace plan says the ceasefire comes after agreement, which makes stopping the war much more distant in the future.
All right, Walter Dorn, I'll leave it there with you, sir, but thank you for joining us today. Appreciate that.